afternoon, good evening, good morning, good West Coast, good whatever the hell you are. It is Team Tim, 2 o'clock on Friday with our good friend Tim Schnurr, Jesse Miller, and our vaporware mystery guest that isn't here. So, hi, everybody. Tim Golden, founder Compliance Scorecard. It is, I don't even know what day it is. It's halfway through May. Oh, my God.
Summer, baby.
And I think, Jesse, like for the first time in ever, you're not wearing your like stocking hat, gloves, and bundled up. What's up with that?
Yeah, it's going to be a high of 85 today out here in Minnesota. It's a perfect day, no humidity. It's that idyllic Minnesota springtime. So I guarantee if there was anyone in Minnesota that was going to be attending today, they're out and about and enjoying the sunshine. So
maybe that's where our mystery guest is this day, is like hanging out in Minnesota.
We're never going to let him live this down. Lardo, yeah.
What was it that I said? Startups need to actually show up.
Ooh, bazinga.
Bazinga. But anyways, let me pull Mr.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim. Yeah.
I was going to say, let me pull Mr. Schnurr over here and say hello, how are you, and what's going on?
What's going on? Tim Schnurr, Inquisitive IT. A little bit of a pivot recently. I'm focusing on retiree security. So I've been doing some cyber awareness webinars and live events with individuals or retirees or high net worth individuals that are, looking to protect themselves. So Tim made a good post this morning about someone who had been gotten defrauded up in New England. I don't love hearing about these cases, but they're great examples of, a very vulnerable part of the population that we need to protect. So, but anyway, Tim, I was talking about Sean Lardo, ConnectWise's notorious MC of all events, right? So like, he's not going to live this down.
He's not. And kind of circling back, like, I talk to my mom a lot about don't answer the phone, don't click things, do nothing. And after, prior to my stepfather passing away, I went down there and kind of got a bunch of things in place to try to help protect them. Right. And so, us as a community, being able to work with our neighbors and our family and what doesn't matter if they're elderly or not. I talk to my kids about this stuff all the time. And it's, we here at Team Tim and MSPs talk about the small business. How do we help them? And sometimes, I tend to forget, like my next door neighbor or, my kids, or in this case, a local woman here in New Hampshire that was defrauded first $200,000. And then the same scammer came back with hey, we're going to do a cash pickup, which was actually a sting with the police to catch them red-handed, and ended up like the whole 9 yards. But enough about that. Mr. Miller, hey, don't you have some stuff going on here very soon?
We do. I got some great announcements today, actually. So Jesse Miller, founder of Power PSA Consulting. We help MSPs build and scale security programs and do it profitably. Our latest initiative is the Power Grid. You can see that scrolling across the bottom of the screen here. It's a community where we actually teach MSPs in a one-to-many style how to build practical and profitable vCISO programs. We just partnered with Empath, recorded a course for them that's now live on the Empath platform, and there's more to come with that relationship, which you'll see coming out next week with a press release. So excited about everything that's set to happen there, and excited to get into these topics that we're going to talk about today.
Wait, is that all you want to talk about? Like nothing else going on in your world?
What? Oh, well, I should say you probably won't see me next week because we're expecting our third, and so we're about to welcome our third into the world, and we're very excited about that as well.
Awesome, and early congratulations. I'll be at MSP Geek next week, so I won't be able to actually maybe I will just kind of are we there yet? Are we there yet? Got a cigar yet? So. But yes, early congratulations to you. Always amazing to have another member of the family, your family, in your family.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
I suppose I should probably say hello too, huh?
Yeah, congrats, Jesse. And I feel like those things always happen a little faster than we expect. Like you're talking about it right now, and I'm like, I'll get a text from you tomorrow morning and be like, yeah, we're fine.
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I think you get less and less. The first one we had like the new nursery all prepped, new pictures bought, new crib, new everything. Second one, it's hand-me-downs. Third one literally has a changing table with some diapers and some onesies in the corner of the guest bedroom.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Wait a minute. Stop the presses. Holy crap, Batman. Look who just finally showed up.
Who's that?
Riches?
It's on Pittsburgh time.
I was at a hair appointment, and now I'm here.
I see they took a little too close there, huh? You probably need one of my hats there so you don't get the sunburn.
Get the sunburn? It's just called sunburn, not the sunburn.
Get a sunburn.
On the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really
On the
sunny.
line. Yeah. The Facebook, all the things.
Is that salmon colored hat? Is that salmon?
It's pink. It's pink for my granddaughter.
I mean, I'm down. I like pink. It's not a problem with that. I think
it's for my granddaughter that we just had, and then we have blue ones for my grandson that will be due in August, and we might have another hat color that we'll have to deal with on Tuesday, right, Jesse?
Yeah, so, potentially.
let's give Mr. Lardo an opportunity to come up, say hello, and tell us about who are you, where are you from, some evangelist. Tell us what's going on, my friend.
Wow, I feel like I'm center stage. This is weird. Sean Lardo, IT Nation, economy evangelist. I like long walks on the beach, poetry, being the little spoon. Favorite color, lavender and pink and yellow. Those are my favorite colors, yes. But also, as I said, I'm from IT Nation, ConnectWise. The reason why I'm involved with these guys mostly is I run the pitcher program competition for IT Nation, which is a incubator startup competition, Shark Tank like competition. I'm not going to get into all the details yet because I'm sure we can get into it later. Been in the industry for 20 years. Been part of five startups. 3 had successful exits. 2 still running in business now. 4 daughters. 3 grandchildren. That's all.
All right, thanks. So we're always happy to have you here, Sean. I know Tim and I really got involved with IT Nation and Pitch It several years ago now, when you first started to kind of, I don't want to say take over and lead, but maybe that is the right way of saying, Pitch It was there, but it didn't really start to gain traction until ConnectWise started to kind of put the things in motion, put the person like yourself and a couple of other really great key individuals there to kind of bring it forward. And then that first, I don't want to say first cohort, but that first cohort, Tim and I were both part of that, right?
Yes.
I'm still at, well, we were compliance risk then, and Tim was at Fort Mesa then. And it's funny because we're kind of competing products, but Tim and I really get to know one another really well, in part because of Pitch It. Not just that, but we were also able to meet other vendors as well and build those communities of relationships. And so, we're excited to have you here to talk a little bit about, the startups and what that looks like.
Yes.
Tim, you have anything you want to start off with? Get us going here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, I don't think I would have met Tim Golden if it wasn't for the Pitch It, cooperative. I think that was a really special year. There was a lot of collaboration, a lot of, helping and giving tips. We had an awesome Slack channel going with all the competitors in the space. We had some kind of amazing buyouts or acquisitions before I think we even got to the finish line. So clearly a success. But Sean, I mean, talk about why, right? Because it's a unique, a unique, I guess, ecosystem play for innovation. And I'm really impressed too. I worked at the Big Four. We did a collaboration with MIT, and we were, trying to bring startups out of MIT to big corporate clients, right? And I was like blown away. I'm like, Sean, you're like step by step here. You're doing all the, all these amazing things. So talk about why ConnectWise like supported you? You know, did you propose this to them? Like, what kind of talk about like how it all evolved?
Well, thanks for the compliment. It's a lot of work, a lot of people helping with the work. So the pitcher competition has been around for, this will be the 6th year running now. However, it was before it wasn't the it wasn't the accelerated incubator program that is today. It wasn't the step by step of everything. Um, and so when I came aboard to ConnectWise, they said, "Harry, you're going to run this thing," and I was like, "Okay, great." And it leveraged itself really well to my background. Being part of startups most of my career, I always came in as the entrepreneur. Or at one point I had my own thing, and I sold it off many moons ago. But then I started to become the entrepreneur for all these entrepreneurs, and it was always in this space. And so it worked well in what I always did, which was growing these startups. And for ConnectWise and for IT Nation at large, the importance behind it is we've all been around long enough to know that every partner, every MSP is using a myriad of products. They're not using one vendor, you know, whether it's 3 or even 25 in some cases, right? Mm-hmm. So ecosystem is extremely important. Now, we IT Nation and ConnectWise is about the open ecosystem concept, because the reality is our products are going to do some things for you that you love, and there's other products that are going to be that are more complementary to you that will be add-ons to our product, you know. And ConnectWise is the core, right? It is a core product being used by MSPs, right? The extremities are these other startups. For IT Nation and ConnectWise itself as a whole, the important piece behind it is that we're looking for these innovative vendors that are coming in to make the lives and the lives easier and easier to do business with between vendor, partner, and ConnectWise. We're looking for long-term investment, not our investment to people or to vendors, but their long-term investment into the community to do more for MSPs. The fact of the matter is, you'll keep using ConnectWise's product as long as it's working, right? And if that means you're using 3 other vendors and it's working well, you're never leaving. So it's a good business model. And as an MSP, you're looking for that same relationship because you're trying to run your freaking business. You don't want to worry about these things. So this gives us a chance to really put our vendors in a position to grow in the ecosystem and have longevity. Because how many vendors do you see that come in and are gone a year later? And you really like their product. You love their product, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, having taken part during Pitch It actually twice, yes. Right? And, you know, I really had an opportunity to kind of learn a lot, right? You know, there were a lot of, what was it, 16 sessions, 16 weeks? I forget the number. And not to mention all the in-betweens. There were like 16 weeks, an hour or so a week, where we went through these different, I hate to say training or these coaching sessions of like really trying to understand, you know, ideal customer profile, go-to-market strategy, packaging and pricing, understand. So, you know, there's a lot of like startup vendors that try to get into, or even enterprise that try to get into the MSP space that know nothing about us.
Right.
And it is a challenge, right? But having come from the MSP space, I could take what I learned out of the Pitch It program and apply it to what we were working towards here at Compliance Scorecard. And, you know, I could go on and on about all the individual sessions. The ones that were most fascinating that I learned a lot was with Jay McBean, right? Yeah. Jay McBean, the guy with the data, he's got all the numbers. And it was really fascinating to like poke and prod at what is your total addressable market, right? What is all the data points? Because he had all that, and it was really, really interesting to be able to dive into that.
And let's touch on what you just said, though, what you started off with. You have two different vendor owners. One is you, and the other is, like you said, the enterprise people that come in and don't know the space, right? They may have done enterprise growth and sales and everything else.
Yeah.
What they have to learn is how to understand the market, right? How to understand the MSPs, how to understand things. Yep. On your side, which you greatly improved the way you did things. It was more about you understanding how to reposition yourself as the vendor, not talking MSPs, right? Yeah. That English to English translation, because you and I, how many times do we go through your presentation, right? And it's just the simple nuances, and so you have it's a very diverse approach to how the people think about things, right? One person does not communicate with the MSP because they've never been one. They think it's different, and they try to go into MBAEs. And the other one was an MSP that tries to go into MSPEs. They're both wrong. It's about watering down what you're really talking about and limit down to a simple message of what problem do we solve? Why did we decide to solve it, and how do we solve it? That's all you got to answer. And everybody knows Tim Golden knows he's a lot more long-winded than that. So it's never just that. It's literally a thesis on that topic. So yeah, so it is a good group of people though. And Tim, you did really improve over the 2 years. You absolutely did.
I couldn't resist. If you tell me to use the word platform one more time.
You were the worst at it. You didn't want to. You were afraid of commitment. You had commitment issues with it. And again, you probably really didn't. It's again, people assume. Think about when you have your children, they're 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, right? If you don't tell them specifically what is going on, they don't understand specifically what is going on. And I think the problem is you assume because they're in the same industry as you, that if you just say a few words, they understand what you're talking about. You know, the first lesson in sales is when you walk on a call or you go to present, you literally outline what to expect in that conversation. You own that. It's your responsibility. Tell them during this call or during this meeting or whatever it is, we're going to talk about A, B, C, D, and E, whatever those are. And you uncover all the potential objections right then. Everybody's saying, we're going to talk about pricing too, stuff like that, because then they put it out of their mind and now they pay attention to you. And so you can know what to expect at the end of this meeting, guys. And you already say, we're going to have a next step on this, whatever we determine. Yeah. Right? Same rules apply. And Tim did not want to say the word platform. I'm like, what is this? Is it a platform or service? We were like 2 pages into his presentation. I'm like, who are you? I don't know what you are.
He's like, I want a higher valuation. I'm a platform, goddammit.
Exactly. That's the easiest thing to say, right? Yeah, like I'm a platform. Everybody wants a software. Nobody wants a service. They want a software. Everybody wants to be a software provider.
So Mr. Schnurr, like having gone through it yourself, like what were some of the key lessons and things that you learned while you were going through that?
Yeah, so I mean, Sean was great, just helping. You've heard of these, incubators like Silicon Valley, things like that, right? Like it's about all the resources that Sean brought to the table, Louis, the other people that were working on Pitch It, right? Like what's a good deck look like? How do you start your value prop? Like, how do you talk about pricing? How do you talk about, we were like, personally, we were pitching Fort Mesa at the time to private equity, or not private equity, but, VC funds and things like that. And we were kind of falling on our face. It was like MSP, GRC. What the, I don't understand either one of those acronyms, right? So, the MSP side of the house, I guess we got to pass on, being in the Pitch It program. But even GRC, like Sean will, Sean's like, I don't really understand what you guys do.
Yeah, we had that conversation. Tim, So Tim Golden, just so we're clear, you're not the only one that had the problem, because Tim Schnurr had it. Because I messaged him one day. I said, dude, we got to talk. Yeah. I don't know what the hell you do. I don't get it. I understood. Obviously, you can pull pieces from what you said and understand pieces, but the complete story, what you're really doing, didn't make sense to me. So it took us we were on a phone call for like 2 hours, I swear.
Yeah. And so, massaging getting that message, like cleaning it up, and then just a presentable form, right? Like all the different angles, right? Like Tim mentioned the market data, which I think all of us wanted that deck, and that was probably the one deck we didn't get, right, Sean?
Yeah.
You guys can't have that.
Some of us might have had some info on it, but not all of it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Operation maturity models, like what are like, depending on who you're selling, how mature are they? Like, what are some of the traits that they have, right? Like, how do they go to business? How do they work with co-managed customers? So like, just getting all of that, like MSP education was huge. And then the cohort was just great. I mean, like, where do you find advice? Like Reddit here, Slack here. This has been my experience. And half the guys, probably more than half of them, were MSP owners that were looking to build a product. So they were giving their brutally honest opinion.
Even to this day, like we communicate, I know I communicate, I'm sure Tim does as well, with that cohort, right? Yes, we know, I won't mention the one vendor particular, whatever, but I talk to Trammy and Kai all the time, right? Like we're always having conversations. Even in the new cohort, that
Right.
you kind of have that thing going on over there,
Mhm.
razzing them over there and talking like,
Yeah.
as this is something that we talk a lot about, like here with better together, right? MSP vendors working. Yeah, we're competing. I mean, look at Tim Schnur and I. We were adamantly competitive products in Pitch It. Here we are 3 years later, like best friends, right? Regardless of what happened, right? Like,
Sure. No, but you can't. Let's be honest. For the size of your businesses, you only have to capture a very small fraction percentage of the market share to be wildly
Right.
successful.
Right.
So there's plenty to go around, and for you to defame anybody is stupid because this is a big company, a big world, but a very small, tight knit community of people that are involved. That really are the people to talk. So it's baffling to me when people do that. And I've competed against plenty of vendors. I don't ever say my good friends are all from the other vendors. Just like
Yep.
because it's not about that. There's enough to go around, and to be honest, there's not one partner that's using just you anyway. So don't be stupid. They're using other ones, and if you dick somebody off, pardon my French, the fact is they start talking about it. The other vendors start talking about it too. What's going to happen? They're going to start to pull away from you, but collectively. If the vendors don't, if we don't support each other as vendors holistically, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, I think the MSP community, the MSPs could use some of that too. And it's
True that.
I'm glad we're talking about this because the power grid is like that startup atmosphere for MSPs looking to start VCSO programs, right? And so just today I have an office hours session today, so we were doing just that. We had someone who is serving the CMMC Defense Industrial Base, and we were going through their pitch deck, right? And it's interesting. I mean, they did it. It's the most fun to go through pitch decks and just like game it out. Yeah. And so, but no matter how good you are at building them, you're always too close to it yourself. And so that's the whole community piece of it, right? Is like, even myself, I fall into that. And that's one of my nerd things I love to do is like game out and angle how the pitch deck's going to be received and all that, right? But there's a couple things. Yeah, it's one thing is that always sticks in my head is clear beats clever every single time, right? And clever, I always try to get too clever myself, and so I need someone to say like that, like I'm not getting right away what that means. And so I was able to say that to about this pitch deck. We had some other people give some great feedback, and so I think it's so important as the collaborative aspect, and that's why I'm excited about things like this.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'll add to that one thing.
Yeah.
My advice to anybody if you want to know if your messaging makes sense, your elevator pitch even, say it to your mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because first off, moms are usually brutal. Like my mom, be like, "What did you say? What do you do?" Like if they understand what you just said, that means you put it in layman's terms. It's digestible.
Yeah.
It also forces you to take away the acronyms because nobody knows what the hell an MSP is,
right?
Unless they're in the space,
right?
Like period. So tell your mom or tell your kids.
John,
that's
what I'm doing right now.
These brutal as hell too.
These cyber awareness. I'm trying to help retirees and individuals like my mom. I help my mother. So it's the same thing. Like I'm taking your lesson and trying to basically push on that. And most of it comes in story form almost, right? I don't want to go too far into like the pitch mechanics and stuff like that, but it's like they only remember stories or, like Tim had a post this morning about someone who was defrauded, right? They'll remember that story more than they'll remember my like step-by-step playbook of like
correct
MFA here and like
Well, in my defense, Sean, you always say I talk too much.
Because you do.
But building that relatability, that storytelling, right? Like
agreed. But if you're working at a booth right now and you're at IT Nation Connect that has 6,000 attendees, do you have time for storytelling? No. You have time for 30 to 45 seconds.
It's not the place of the venue.
Correct. Right. Exactly. So you have to be able to do both. You're absolutely right. You build relationships through storytelling. You're absolutely right. But when you have about the place and time, if we're sitting there drinking for the next 6 hours, politics, religion, and whatever else you want to talk about, we got tons of storytelling, right? But if I got 30 seconds, how do I make the most of it?
Yeah.
The best is just buy my shit, damn it.
That's not how that works.
I'm kidding. I can say that on Team 10. I would never say that to our customers.
I would.
So I want to change gears a little bit because there's a burning question that I wanted to ask. At least your opinion, Sean. So we hear this term Valley of Death, right?
Yeah.
And I want to know what that means to you. Is it 1 million ARR? Is it 50K MRR? Like, what is the Valley of Death in Sean Lardo's definition?
That's a negotiable question first.
Okay, fair.
Okay. It depends on the context of Valley of Death. If we're talking about if your go-to-market strategy in your business is related off of and you're looking for cash flow, monthly is required, right? Not annual anything. And also when you talk about software compared to hardware, change of conversation, right?
Sure.
And also investments. If your ARR, so the way when I build out startup programs myself, I always talk about the growth of the business. I don't talk about the technologies yet because if I understand what it does, I understand it provides a solution. Great. I have to figure out how to grow it, right? And when I look at it, based off of if I'm looking to invest in growth for the year, I do things on short cycles. First off, in a sales mentality, it forces me to have deliverables immediately.
Right.
And I can start to track my numbers. I don't care what the revenue numbers you told me you want. I'm looking at what I need to spend to get to the next level.
Got it.
Because if you tell me you need to, hey, we need to make $1 million. Okay, but $1 million, how much money are you getting from that?
Yeah.
Not me being paid. How much money am I getting for resources to grow the business? If you tell me, well, that just breaks even, well, that's not doing me any good, is it now? Yeah. So I'm looking at the EBITDA, but the EBITDA doesn't happen until after I get what I need to grow. Because it's we've all done businesses. The first 2-3 years, you're just reinvesting.
Right.
You hope you make a paycheck. You're like, well, sorry, when you on vacation there? Not until 3 years from now, maybe. Again, and so I don't put much value on that on any of it. Okay. The Valley of Death really comes in play is where are you health wise as a business to be able to reinvest smartly, and strategically to grow, because that's the one loss, that's the biggest loss of vendors like Tim Gold and them that are IT guys by design. Is on the growth side, they don't do it. They know where to allocate funding on their side of the house. And vice versa. If you're a salesperson all your life and you try to open a software company, you don't know what to. You're investing heavily in the front end of growing, without the back end of fulfilling. So I don't even pay attention to that unless it makes sense to me of what we're looking to accomplish. And I'm always way further ahead than you are. Like if you're the owner, it's my pace, not your pace.
Yeah.
And that was one of the. Go ahead,
No, I was just gonna say it's an interesting concept, and I appreciate that. So it would almost be, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tell me if I'm saying this back to you correctly. It's more about a measure of resilience and being able to be resilient in the marketplace and having the war chest to be able to do that is getting past the Valley of Death, where you're not just living paycheck to paycheck as an organization, so to speak. Yeah.
If you're playing poker, I'm the chip leader all the time. The chips are on the table right now, but I have to be able to allocate. I have to be able to invest, and I have to be able to invest in the growth of that business. Let's be honest. All problems go away with enough money in a business, right?
That's not true. That's not true.
Wrong, because I can make enough money to replace who I need to replace if they're not good in that industry, in the organization. Rather, I can, or you make so much money as a CEO, you can say, I hate this all, I'm done. But guess what? You made your money. You can leave. You can resolve these problems. That's the thing is like, and I really hate the fact that I have to make so much money for you. You have to hire one more person. Poor guy. It's not. We're good. Make the money you want to make to invest where you want to invest. But I always look at the money I want to make with the investment in mind of growth.
Nice. Well, that was one of the interesting conversations and I think it was actually one of the very beginning ones, which is, what are you building? You want to build something, grow it fast, sell it, and walk away with $1 million in your pocket in a week? Or are you building generational wealth where you leave with billions of dollars and the next 100th century of your family is good, right? That was something that when we were looking at what is it that we want to do, right? And Sean, you probably remember me saying, like, I don't want to build generational wealth. My kids are going to have to go earn their cake just like I did. Kind of. Obviously, we want them to be safe, secure, and well cared for. But what I wanted to be able to do, like our sort of strategy and concept. Like, yes, we need to get paid along the way, but we want to help the small businesses. We want to, like, I want to take what's in my brain and what's in our team's brain and give that to the next generation, and probably make some money along the way, right?
I mean, that
That's
makes
on
sense. But that's fair. But regardless of whatever you want to do, you already have, every one of us has a vision of something you want to go to and get to, regardless, right? As an entrepreneur, even, but as far as I'm concerned, everybody that works for me should have an entrepreneur mentality too. Now, granted, you have role players, right? But even as a role player, if I say this is your desk and this is your responsibility, they should make that their own business, right? And so when you start knowing this, and this is where most businesses fail, is the lack of alignment of communication. They think communication is saying, this is your job. How did you do in tickets today? You got to answer 5 tickets a day and resolve them. They think that they think that's communication, right? That's not communication. Communication is saying, this is who we are as an organization. It's a culture thing first. Know who belongs with you, because I want to know who I'm working with, right? Not for, but with. Like, because if I don't respect you, I can't work hard for you. I can't respect you enough to do more. And if you don't respect me enough to empower me and enable me to do jobs, I can't do it. And I'm not going to want to do it, right? So communication is so crucial in that way of saying, here's who we are, here's where we want to get to. If it's you want to get to 100 employees or $100 million or a trip to freaking Australia, I don't know. But you start talking about these things, and everybody gets to start talking together about it, right? Because now you know, because you're running your own little business in your cube, running whatever it is you're doing, but you know what you contribute to the overall makeup of the business and how to get there. It's different.
That's why it's so important. And if you don't have that defined, how are you ever going to communicate that to people? So
correct. My gosh.
the whole thing of this new term exographics, right? It's like taking psychographics from marketing and applying that to a company and treating it as an entity, as a living, breathing thing. And so the exographics of your company, who is this company? How do we think? How do we work as a whole? It's taking that psychological factor and actually applying it to a company. And then once you've defined that, I call it your organizational DNA. That becomes so powerful because everything is focused around that. And this isn't new necessarily, but I think it's so important to, I think, as you said, get to that goal and get to that level of resilience. Because if people have a thing that they can rally around, that's a piece of resilience right there, right?
You have to. It's your identity. Yeah. It's your identity as a business. Yes, Bob, we said startups. You're everywhere. Happy little startups.
Good last name.
Bob teaches a entrepreneur and innovation class down in Louisiana. So he's,
nice.
He's got his own little cohort, and there he is.
I love that. I think.
But so the valley of death. I mean, like, right, that I guess it matters industry by industry. Sometimes it's just first customer. Sometimes it's just like cash runway and running out. But I think specifically with MSPs in the channel, right, I think it's even a little bigger valley of death, right? Like, you have to not only raise money, you've got to create that value prop, convey that value prop that Sean just mentioned, and then deliver, right? Like I'm stealing something that Reg Harnish glued to my head, and I think it sticks there, is like, to be a successful channel vendor, you've got to be able to sell through to more than 20% of your new customers. And what does he mean by sell through? It's like, you can sign up customers all day long, right? Like, you can go and do demos and have an NFR, but are they actually doing the thing, using the product and creating value for their MSP by selling it and delivering? Right. So like that just stuck with me. And Reg obviously is founder of Autotask, like a bunch of channel startups. The guy knows the channel, but that really is like, that's a very hard place to get to, I think.
Yeah. Well, we actually,
but let's, I got one thing to add to that real quick though. The challenge, the reason why these businesses struggle in that regard is because the person that actually created this job and the responsibilities never outlined the process that they took to get to the results they got. And they just think it's just, you forget, if MSPs are guilty as all shit about this, let's be honest. They are the worst of the worst. They're my friends. By the way, Jesse, I don't care what they think. I will tell them to their face all across the board. They are the absolute worst at it. Because here's the conversation. I'm going to hire a sales guy. Okay, cool. To do what? They're going to sell stuff. Awesome. That's amazing. Cool. So they're going to close a deal? Oh, no. I close the deals. Okay, so what do they do? Well, they're going to set the appointments. and they're gonna make them qualify them for. That's like great. So you have like a lot of leads. Yeah, we got like 100 leads. Okay, what are they gonna do next month? What do you mean? I'm like, well, 100 leads.
Yeah.
The salesperson will be done. They'll be through that in a month. If they do a process of any sort, it's over.
That's a
He's
week.
like, well, and then they go, well, we'll generate more leads. They're going to go generate leads. Oh, how? Well, they're going to just go generate leads. Doing what? Well, we'll buy some lists. Oh, good luck with that. And at the end of the day, it comes down to he forgot, and they have a quote of $1 million a year. And I'm like, how'd you get that? Well, we do $1 million a year now. How long have you been in business for? 15 years. Great. When'd you hit $1 million? About 2 years ago. So it took you 13 years to get to $1 million a year. But this poor schmo got to do it in 1 year with no process, no resources, no nothing. Good luck. Again.
Yeah.
So,
That ties right into Bob. Like, have a process, have the people, have the systems to sell, deliver, and support. Right. So, back to what Tim was saying about Reg, just like working the sell through motion, right? And we've started doing that here, right? I literally just today was on a call with an MSP and their end customer, talking about CMMC, right? Talking about what it actually looks like, both from the MSP and the customer. And here's something very interesting. The very first question I asked the customer as I was invited into the conversation by the MSP was, do you have any DFARS clauses? What's that? Okay, so if anybody knows anything about the CMMC space, that's for like contractual obligation to be able to forced into doing that.
but that's
And he pulled up the contract. Well, wait, he pulled up his contract, and we started looking through it, and there was not a single mention of DFARS. The next question was, why are you going after CMMC? Well, I don't know, because I want to sell to the Department of Defense. Wait, you want to sell, or you are actually selling? Right? And so the conversation really kind of dove into like that sell through motion, right? Us as vendors being able to partner with the Jessies and the people delivering the services, not just to get another sale in the cab, but to actually look at how does this make their business and their clients' business more successful. I don't think enough vendors do that. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Well, I think the first thing, there was a gap in the education of the person you were talking to, what was needed. The first thing I always start with, anytime I go to a startup company and I start working with them, I ask them what their FAQ is, right? And the FAQ never is an FAQ, by the way. It's based off whoever wrote that, what they thought that day, right? And what they were most annoyed with, because the FAQ should be diverse, because on one side you have a technology side where if you're responding to tickets, right, you have an FAQ for that, because there's the same common things like forgot my password, I'll go do this, right? Simple one, right? But on the sales side, you have a different one, right? So you need to have this bridge. You have to bridge it too, and that's a very big challenge for a lot of them. Because again, back to education, I should be able to take that FAQ, and it should be so good that I can share it externally and not care. It almost becomes a mini RFP in a way, or a rec document of some sort, because and that's the hardest thing for vendors with partners to sell through, is training the partners how they should approach the sale, because that's where everything goes wrong, is in the expectations in the beginning. What questions should you ask? The simple ones. Here's the first three.
Jesse, you were going to say something?
No, I just think it's really interesting. Is you touched on something that I wanted to talk about, Sean, is that, as vendors, we're talking about startups, and we're talking about two different types of vendors that approach the channel, right? And kind of being where I am in the middle of MSPs and your traditional SaaS vendors, where I'm helping MSPs build these programs, select vendors, of course, so vendors, partnerships, which that's great. But you have certain ones that say we want to sell to MSPs, and I ask them a few questions. And I'm like, okay, they don't know the market at all. Like, they think it's going to be way easier than it actually is.
Oh my God.
So I said, be prepared to do about 80% of the sales enablement. And if you're not able to do that and commit to doing that, you're not going to be successful selling to MSPs, because like you said, you have to be able to take them and show them how to sell your product correctly and position it correctly with the customer much of the time. And that's not a knock on anybody, but MSPs are, they're living paycheck to paycheck in terms of operational maturity,
they're busy.
right?
They're busy.
Right. That's it.
If you make up only, let's be realistic here.
Yeah.
If your product makes up 1% of their revenue, do you think they give a shit about you?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just had this conversation. I said, break the numbers down for me. They're like, oh, they can make 20%. I'm like, okay, so what's the typical cost? How many seats are you selling? I'm like, okay, so you can tell me as an MSP owner, I can make 200 extra bucks a month selling your product. I don't care about that at all. Right?
No.
Like, unless you make it extremely easy for me to just drop in for 200 bucks a month, I don't care. Like,
You got to teach the fisherman how to fish,
Yeah.
but he doesn't want to get on the boat.
No, right. He wants to be on the pier drinking a beer and doing his own
Right.
thing, hanging out with his friend. That's exactly
Yeah.
precisely. But the word enablement is such a. I did enablement for many years. I was part of some very big projects. Matter of fact, one of my biggest projects on channel enablement was with Rockwell Automation. My God, when I talk about a train wreck, oh my Lord. Based off what side of the planet they were on, they either use Salesforce or Dynamics, right? And then nothing could communicate together. So we're trying to work out the processes. But the challenge was always, and it always will be, is that, to your point, it has to be very easy turnkey for them. If you make it convoluted and extensive, they're going to be done, right? It's just over. But the next piece is you have to make sure you follow with. I love how they always say we're going to do self-serve models. You can't even self-serve yourself. How are you going to self-serve the MSP? How are they going to self-serve the client? You have
I'd
to
love
look at that.
Yeah.
I definitely want to be a fly on the wall on one of these pitch it sessions.
Well, usually my lesson to them is like, you guys need to start sharing stuff on social because you don't have a reputation. You don't
Right.
leverage us. Like that's the biggest thing. Like Tim. Well, both Tims are. Tim Snur's got much better lately. He sucked last year, and we talked about it. So Tim Golden, he's very good at it, right? He's always been active in the community. Social media is free. We give you a chance to attach to one of the largest communities in the world. Why are you not leveraging it? Why are you not engaging? Why are you not promoting it? And my line is, if you feed the program feeds you. You have to do it. And that's one of the biggest. It's every week. I'm like, guys, we just posted this and I didn't see anybody share. Oh, yeah. What are you doing? Like, or no, it was always like, I post this and Tim Golden shared and not even my story. Like that's it. Like, So, but it's gotten better over the years. But it is you have to have uncomfortable conversations to make progress.
Yeah.
You have no choice.
Nice.
Which is hard for entrepreneurs, right? To take guidance, take advice.
Well, it's hard to argue with somebody if they conceptualized something and took it to being a $2 million business on their own, or with their employees, right? It's hard to say they're doing something wrong necessarily, right? So it's almost like and it's funny because all entrepreneurs that ever ask me to come help them, they hit that plateau and they know they want to do more, but then once they get it, they don't like my conversation, right? But they have no choice, and their relationship is always the same. When they get ready to hire me and bring me on, because I used to consult, right? But the problem with consulting is I become just the nagging spouse. You don't got to do anything, I tell you. And then 6 months later, nothing worked because you did nothing.
Right.
And you're like, this isn't working. I'm like, right, it isn't. Like it feels horrible. So I forced them to hire me, and I become part of the ELT always. Like, and I have a vested stake in the company, right? And that way I'm an owner, right? And I'm extreme ownership for me. And it's always funny because I put together a 30, 60, 90-day strategy, and they always think it's going to say, I'm selling on day one and growing the business on day one. No, the first 30 days and 60 days is on you guys as the owner. You got to get me up to speed. You got to give me everything I need. And I tell them, I'm like, I'm high maintenance. I'm absolutely high maintenance. But you know why? Because you're going to be high maintenance for the rest of my career with you after this. So I have to be, right? So, and if you go with that conversation, you set the expectation that you're now on level playing field, the two of you, because we're both coming in as owners now. It's not your owner, me employee. No, I own my world, and my job is to fire you from all growth. Get out of the way because you suck at it. That's why you're still here, and that's why you called me. And every entrepreneur loves me. On day one, they're throwing up because they have to pay me. They have to pay me. They're like, holy shit, I'm going to pay this much money. Then they have, so the first 24 hours is buyer's remorse, right? They're like, oh my God, right? They get over that. And then the first couple weeks, they're happy about it. They're excited. I'm the shiny new toys. They show me off.
Right.
And then about a month and a half into, they're like, what are you doing here? Right. And the next thing you hear is like, well, I'm fixing your stuff. Why you keep bothering me? Well, because I need more help from you because you didn't tell me all these things. You promised me you're going to. Then they do. Usually by the 6th month, they're like, why are you here? We're going to let you go soon. I'm like, no, you don't. By 7 months, we're growing. Right. By a year, they're like, holy shit, you're amazing. Right? You're amazing as all hell. By year 2, they're like, we did this without you. It's always the same thing. Like, right, I got it. But but that's how it goes. That's my relationship. It's a love-hate.
Get out of my head.
I've been here for a long time, Jesse.
We can all agree.
Right, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. And you know what? And it's okay. Like when I first started doing this, I always and think about when we were all younger, and we thought because somebody had a CEO title next to their name that meant they were really good and smart. How many dumb CEOs have you in your life? I bet a lot. They're equally as dumb as you are. They're just really good at something else that we're not.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
No, it's-
I'm done. I'm
So-
no, that was great. That was a great little trip there.
I want to give a couple of 3 to 5 more minutes to talk about the Valley of Death. I'm going to spend the last probably 5 to 7 minutes about what's changed in this cohort. So thinking about this idea about crossing the Valley of Death, right? It means different things to all of us differently.
Sure.
Maybe for me it was breaking my first 50 customers, or my first 100 customers, or my first 200 customers, or 1,000, right? Maybe for me it was, how the hell am I going to pay myself tomorrow because I have one customer and I'm shelling out $1 zillion an hour, right? There's a lot of different things to think about as a startup or an MSP, how you define that Valley of Death. For us right now, it's the scalability challenge, right? It's the how do we replicate what we've done so far, and the momentum that we're having, and being able to service our customers and those coming down the pipe, right? For us, it's a scalability problem that we are addressing, but those things take time.
Regardless of whatever do you know what the one common denominator, what you just said was on every one of those things? It requires you to have a reinvestment in yourself and your business regardless. You have to take the risk, no matter which one you go with, no matter what it is, whether it's and I don't know what that investment should be. It's based off of, it could be hiring somebody to do some other job, or it could be you got to pay for a tool, or you got to pay for a show, or God knows what. But you have to do. You can't sit there scared.
Yeah, well, and I it's funny because I talk my marketing and sale, like we talk a lot about, like, Tim does not scale. I need, not that I am pulling away, but we need to build these processes to scale, and that's what we are doing. And by the way, hiring is hard. They say a lot of jobs and a lot of people, so hiring is hard.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely, and that's why you should be nice in the community. That way, people introduce you to people. If you're not nice to other people, they're like, Tim's a dick. Nobody wants to work for him. Right. Seriously,
we are getting introductions, so I can't be that big of a dick because I am getting introductions. The hard part is scheduling 30 interviews.
And let's keep something in mind too. The person that started the business and made it successful in the beginning isn't necessarily who's the person finishing the business later.
Yeah.
It's more common than not. The CEO, the entrepreneur, the owner of the business gets them to a certain level, and either you a lot of times they either get tired of it and want to move on to something else, or they're just not the right person for the position to take it to that next level either. And that's the hardest pill to swallow, right? It's like, even though you're wildly successful, you still feel like you failed because, what do you mean I can't go to 100 million with this company? Of course I can. I did the first 10 million. And then you feel like a loser but meanwhile you shouldn't. You went to 10 million. That's a victory. And not everybody can scale. It's not the same thing. It's not like, if you can't change your approach, you can't change your approach. After a certain age, we don't really change much, right? Our way of doing things is the way of doing things, Yeah.
And we follow, I don't know why it says LinkedIn user, but that is the right person in the right seat at the right time. Because again, I don't scale, and I'm the wrong person in the wrong seat. So anyways, enough about me, enough about us. Yeah, Bob, some great comments here. Humans don't scale, right? Getting your first dollar, right? Tim, Jesse, before we kind of dive into the current cohort for Pitch It, last, kind of pressing questions, Valley of Death.
Is it just started? It's already decided. You've already got your list. Gotcha.
We just, yesterday was the press release went out for the announcement for the 26 vendors that made it this year. And it was a difficult year. We had a lot of applications, man.
Yeah. Before we dive in, it seems like last year was probably more mature than the year before. More mature being more capital Yeah.
Oh.
a little further along, like what's your litmus test for like just right?
So a couple of things. Um, One thing we originally it was we wanted everybody to be at 1 million or below in revenue, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we started to increase that to 2 million now because well, inflation took place and nothing's cheap, and and just because you have that kind of revenue doesn't mean you have the EBITDA to it because you're not necessarily mature, right? You might make 2 million a year in revenue, but it really only realize $100,000, right? I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
there's no EBITDA.
Yeah,
Like, let's
yeah,
be
yeah.
serious.
There's nothing. Yeah, it's not, yeah, right. Ramen noodles is your EBITDA, right? And that's like
Yeah.
that. And um, so the first thing was, so the first criteria are pretty simple. You got to be doing something that supports MSPs, whether it's you're selling to, selling through, selling to and through. I don't care, but your product, your service supports the MSP's mission, right? Period. Two, ConnectWise was got to have the ability to be able to integrate into ConnectWise's systems, right? Because we're trying to help these MSPs work in the as best we can into a single pane of glass, which will never happen. It's a great line to say, get in a single pane of glass. Well, yeah, good luck to you and your 17 other companies. Yeah, right. So that was but trying to get to integrate and make things a little bit easier for them, right? And then it comes down to the revenue piece, right? And then after that, um, because those are easy questions to answer for everybody, and you can see that if they check off those three boxes, that's when we start doing a deep like dive into their actual company. We start doing social searches, look at digital footprints, look and see who's engaged in the community, look at who the people are in the company, and see if they've been in the space or not, where they come from. Do they have any kind of pedigree of any sort? Do they have any kind of consistency or stability? Because if you look, all the vendors that were in your guys' very first one that I did are still in the space. If they haven't been acquired, they're still there as acquired. Only one company left the space, and that's because they were acquired outside of the space. So,
Right.
that's a win for us. So we look at the digital footprint and make sure everybody's on par with everything. Plus, we want people that are actively engaging, because if you guys, the first thing I told you guys on the cohort is you guys need to all be together. You need to capitalize on each other's. You all have the same motivation. ConnectWise can outbid you on marketing all day long. So you're not competing against ConnectWise like that. You're competing against community mindshare, right? Making friends. And there's no reason why you guys can't be collaborators in that together. Plus you get more money together. Yes.
Did they raise the prize money to 100K?
No, it's 70 and 30 still. It's just a total of 100K.
All right, because I was reading the press release here.
No, if you
right,
read into it, it says 70 and 30.
Yeah, okay. I was like, wait, hold on, wait a minute.
Nope,
Wait.
nope. Not yet, but that's something down the road that's going to happen. We're working on that. There's a lot of things that are being worked on for the next year or two here to take it to the next level, because we are the only competition in our space that's doing this. This is the only program like that,
Yeah. And I didn't want to drop down on that, but the company starts with a K, and the bundling thing, it seems like you guys are going the opposite direction, a little more open source, a little more collaborative, a little more crowdsourcing.
Yep, absolutely. So. I mean, you can say the name. I'm not offended.
Wait. We have a thing for that. Hold on. We have a thing for that.
Yeah, they sponsored an arena in Miami, the crypto fraud guy.
Oh yeah.
No. Yeah.
The Messiah. The Messiah group. Got it. Yeah. So here's the deal. Yes, the answer is yes. It's a different positioning in it. It's not like either one of us are doing the wrong thing, because there's no real right thing here, right? I mean, there isn't, because depending on what report you read of how many MSPs there's a shitload. We'll just say that in North America alone, there's plenty, right? And everybody does business in their own ways, right? And Kaseya, they've taken the approach of the IT complete approach. They're buying a lot of companies, and they're buying them, and they're doing the integrations in them to try to, and they launched their $399 package, right? Which it's a watered down version of the more robust feature sets, which makes sense, because historically speaking, we all know that you didn't go to Kaseya or ConnectWise to buy from them as a partner until you were at least sizable enough to pay the bill. We need more.
Right.
The same thing as using Pipedrive CRM and Salesforce. Same
Yeah.
rules apply, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why you had some other like PSA and ARM vendors that were able to come out and do things, because it was almost like it was the smaller groups, the smaller companies, smaller businesses that needed it, right? And the luxury of that was some of those vendors that got those those young companies, some of them were able to grow with them and stay with them, but some had to eventually come over to ConnectWise or Kaseya, right? Facts. Now, ConnectWise's position on this is pretty simple. We reinvested, instead of buying companies, we reinvested into the framework of redoing for our ASIO platform. So the next generation of PSA, RMM, and everything else, right? But it wasn't just about them either. It was about those products alone. It was about making it easier also for the vendors to be able to connect with us easier too.
Yeah.
The on-prem days are not gone, because they'll never be gone. We know that. But before it was 100% on-prem stuff, right? Then it became 80%, and then 70 and 60. You're at the days of like on-premise 10%, maybe. I don't know, right? So as long as it stays that way, you need to go to the next generation of things. And if you can't do updates across the board on technologies, you're kind of in trouble, right? And so that's what the whole point of ASIO was to be open sourced, open systems as far as the community is concerned, an ecosystem. Let them all come in, because the reality is we're going to profit regardless.
Mhm.
You're going to profit,
So,
we're going to profit, we're good.
all right, cutting down to the last 2 minutes,
Yeah.
4 minutes.
Yep.
I know Sean and we can probably talk all day long. It's always a battle. Who gets to talk more, Tim or Sean? We like to leave our show here at Team Tim and Uncle Jesse with at least one key takeaway from each of us. Sean, I'm going to give you the floor first, which means you don't get all 4 minutes, but take at least a minute or so and talk about one key takeaway of cybersecurity startups, whether it's an MSP or a vendor.
One key takeaway is cybersecurity startups. Learn where the hell you belong in a cybersecurity stack, and own it, and make sure you communicate it. Fun.
Nice. Awesome. Jesse?
Yeah, my key takeaway, I really liked Sean's take on the Valley of Death and defining what that means for you specifically. And so to me, stop living hand to mouth, and that's your Valley of Death.
Wow. Awesome. Mr. Schnurr?
Yeah, so the last one is customer success or account management, and land and expand is probably the most important thing, I think, for channel vendors.
I would say whether it's an MSP as a startup or a vendor as a startup or anybody as a startup, find the right people in the right seat at the right time, have a plan and have a process. Because without any of that, you're just going to fail along the way. And so people, process, plan, then maybe technology. And so
people aren't scalable. You said that earlier in the call. You can't say people first.
Well, you have the right people.
You said Tim is not scalable.
I'm not, but the group of people.
Technology. That's the order of things. You want me to explain why? I can, but we don't have time.
Well, you got 28 seconds. Have at it.
Okay, simple. You develop the process because you want the people to be able to come into it to do the work. They don't dictate the process. The process is already dictated. The technology is only brought in because it's there to support the people that support the process. It is a building block system. The end.
So my dyslexia gets the best of me. Process, people, plan. Right? Plan, process, people? I don't know. What's the 3 PPP? Oh, wait, wrong song.
Oh, my God.
All right, so we've gone totally off the rails. For those of you that are going to MSP Geek, we will see, some of us will see you there Sunday next week. If you haven't already booked your thing, you might be too late, but we are looking forward to seeing those that will be at MSP Geek next week. I will not be on Team Tim next week because I'm going to visit my mom that day while we're in Florida, so I should probably see my mom. Mr. Schnurr, what do we have coming up next week?
We have a special guest that I'm confirming, so it could just be myself and this special guest, and Mr. New Dad over there. He may join. I don't know. We'll see. So, but we'll have that out by over the weekend.
Yeah, I might join. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll take a long.
You might need the time off. Like, just give me Wayne. Right. All right. That's this week's episode.
That's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, Wayne Selk in 2 weeks. So
Wayne in 2 weeks. Yep. Talking about
Wayne,
the state.
really? Oh, I want to come on with Wayne. Not really. I put it for tomatoes. That's all I want to do.
I'm out.
All right, everybody.
You Wayne get fired up? Bring me on with him. I'll get him so annoyed.
All right, I am ending now. So goodbye, everybody. Have a good rest of your week. Thank you so much. Do the things with the
Subscribe now.